Today on Detroit Muscle, we've got some seriously worn out paint on our budget IROC, but we'll show you the solution to wake it up without killing your wallet. We'll also customize the Camaro's wheels. Then it's time to slap on our mullet wigs and sleeveless shirts and take her for a spin.
When we started to work on our 86 IROC Z, the first thing to do was get rid of that tired 305 she came with and swap in a budget 350 bottom end. We tossed some go fast goodies at it, like trick flow heads and an NOS Sniper Nitrous kit. That doubled our power output.
Then it was time to address that yucky interior by removing most of it altogether. Then we replaced it with a pile of new pieces from year one and seats from Summit. And that was a big improvement.
After we upgraded the suspension, there was one more thing to deal with: its appearance. This is the factory color of the car, but that yellow is faded beyond all hope. Or is it? Obviously, today we're going to be working on the paint on our IROC. Now, normally we'd push this thing in the booth, sand on it for hours and hours and hours, but this car's kind of a budget-minded deal. So, we all know that those paint supplies add up pretty quick. So we brought in our friend Chris Johnson with Pro Corrections, and we're going to see if we can bring this paint back from the dead.
This is an example of what Chris does, taking beaten up and weathered paint jobs, reviving them back to a great finish. He's worked on everything from supercars to old hot rods. And they call this paint correcting.
Now, you guys have seen us take a brand new paint job, sand it down, and bring it to that mirror finish. Bringing back an old paint job is kind of the same, but kind of different. And technology, well, it's came a long way in the last few years, hasn't it?
That's right, it has. The buffers, the compounds, and even the techniques that we use have all improved to help produce a better finished quality product.
Now, I know you're kind of a magician when it comes to this type of thing. What's the first plan of attack?
What we're going to do is we're going to do a test spot to determine what pad and product combination works best.
Yeah, that makes sense because paint varies between manufacturer.
That's right. For example, Porsche has a very soft clear coat. Something like a BMW has a very hard clear coat, and everything takes a different process. So normally on a vehicle in pretty good condition, you would use a least aggressive method to bring the paint back. This particular car is in pretty rough shape, so we're going to go a little more aggressive.
For his buffers, Chris uses a line of products from a company called Shine Supply, which offers a series of polishes and detailing compounds.
I'll be using Classic Cut. It's a compound that's a little more aggressive to bring back the paint on this car because it's pretty rough, and then we'll refine it with a polish.
We've already made sure that the surface is clean and decontaminated before any polishing takes place. If you don't do that, you can actually grind contaminants down into the finish. A microfiber cloth is the best choice to wipe down the surface. And then Chris is going to take a look at how it's handling that compound.
So the next step is going to be to take a polish and a polishing pad and finish it down.
This is a much less aggressive product. Just like if you were sanding, you want to step it down to improve the shine.
The real trick here is to keep the buffer moving. Chris is good enough that he can feel what the pad is doing to the surface. But for beginners, constant movement keeps you from burning through your paint or your clear coat. Now let's take a look at how the test spot compares to the rest of the car. Dang!
All right, now you may notice this paint does have some orange peel in it, but because we're on a budget, we don't want to take the time to wet sand this whole car. The process we're doing right here that Chris is showing us will be just fine. Chris is going to hit another spot for us to check the consistency of the finish across the car. If this spot reacts in the same way as the one up on the fender, we're in business. Another tip for you if you want to try this on your own ride. Don't do it in direct sunlight because that could actually bake the buffing compound onto the surface. And as you can see, this is a huge improvement over what we had. All right, so when you're doing a job like this, obviously there's some tools of the trade you need to get the job done right. Chris, tell us a little bit about what we have here.
So obviously we're gonna have microfiber towels. So I've got a couple different towels that I use. One is a long pile towel and one is a short pile towel. For most vehicles, you can use a long pile. It's really soft against the paint, but on really soft paints, it can even scratch it. So that's when you want to use a short pile. It'll leave a good finish on the paint. As far as buffing pads go, you have a cutting microfiber and you have a finishing microfiber. This one has more cutting ability, but it obviously isn't going to finish down as well as this one will. On some harder paints, you can actually finish this down all the way with zero marring. So if you wanted to take it a step further, you can move to a foam pad after the microfiber pads. The orange is for if you need a little more correction. The black is the finishing pad that's going to give you the maximum clarity.
All right, so now that we know what all this stuff is and how it works, I think we should probably get out of your way and let you get back to work.
Still ahead, see the tremendous transformation that can happen to faded paint with a little elbow grease and know-how. Then later jump in and hopefully it won't rain because we left the T-tops at the shop.
Hey y'all, glad you made it back. Old Chris has stayed after it, and he's taken our IROC from creamsicle to dreamsicle. Now there's still quite a bit of real estate that he's gonna have to work on and a few obstacles that's gonna give him a run for his money. In order to give you an idea just how much he's able to improve the paint on this old Camaro, let's watch him as he does the entire hood.
All right, so when you're doing a job like this, you want to make sure you protect the rest of the surfaces that you're not hitting with the buffer. Now what Chris is using here is painter's tape, and the reason why he's doing that is because when he's using the buffer, it can go over like on the emblem where he is now, and it could scratch it. Another reason he's doing it is because the buffing compound will get caught in the cracks and crevices, and it's really hard to get out. Using a blower to get rid of old compound will help the process along and give you a better finish in the end. Like we were saying earlier, you'll want to tape up delicate areas like emblems, vinyl graphics, decals, and rubber trim to protect them. He's got a few different sizes of buffing wheels to get him into tight spaces and working around edges where you'll want to be the most cautious. Just keep the machine moving and you'll be fine.
Can you remember the last time you saw a third-gen Camaro where the headlight buckets didn't look all scratched up like this? Well, after a few minutes with Chris, here's one for you. Take a look at the before, and there's the after. Here's our Camaro earlier on, and now, take a look at that shine, son.
With a few buffers and the right compounds, he's managed to completely transform the look of this car.
Our old Camaro has definitely made one heck of a transformation. And Chris, I want to say thank you for all that hard work that you put into it. It looks really good, man.
Hey, no problem, anytime.
Sure. Well, we still got a few more things to do, so let's get after them.
Up next, see how to lay out a custom candy look on your wheels.
Hey guys, welcome back. I guess you noticed our 3rd gen Camaro's up on jack stands. That's because we were fresh out of cinder blocks. All joking aside, we had to do that because it got our wheels and tires off, sent them out, and got these brand new tires installed. We chose Mickey Thompson's Street Comp Ultra High Performance tire in a 245/40/18. This tire has a 97Y speed rating, so it'll be plenty for our IROC. And the tread design has these large patterns for dry traction and these grooves to aid in wet traction. And this tire comes with a 300 tread wear rating, so this thing will last longer than this tire's competitors. Now I know you're thinking IROC Zs didn't come with 18-inch wheels, and you're right. They came with 16s. These 18-inch aftermarket wheels are actually in pretty good shape, and we're gonna salvage them, but we got something special to add.
That special thing that he was referring to is this right here. It's made by Dupli-Color, and it's the Shadow Chrome Blackout coating. Now it comes as a 2-part setup. It has a translucent paint and then a top coat, which is pretty much a clear coat. Now we've got a demonstration set up here that we're going to paint this chrome valve cover to show you exactly how it works. Okay, what we did here is tape off a section of the valve cover. We're going to spray on a coat and move the paper over, and we're going to do this process 3 or 4 times. What this will show you is each individual step and how it changes in color. So we'll be able to determine how many coats we want on our wheel. This paint is essentially a candy, which tells you that you have to be very careful with your overlap to avoid striping. Grab yourself a practice piece like this valve cover to get comfortable with it. Okay, so what you have here is nothing, 1 coat, 2, 3, and 4. And what this shows you is the concentration level of that translucent paint. Now for what we're going for, the effect we like is somewhere between the 2 and 3. We like both of those. And that just goes to show we just need to put that many coats on. The next thing that we have to do is clean this wheel up, and we're going to use some of the Dupli-Color prep spray. You just simply spray it on and wipe off all the contaminants.
This prep spray also comes in quart jugs, which you can use for bigger jobs. Like any paint project, cleaning this thing off is imperative for a good finish. A little bit of oil or brake dust on your wheel can really ruin your day once it messes up the paint. Now instead of just spraying this entire wheel with that shadow, we decided to give it a different kind of touch, more like a stock IROC Z wheel, which would have had charcoal or black insets here and in the middle of the spoke, depending on what year it was. So next thing to do is get it masked up. Tom, there's your roll.
Okay, fine.
And when you have tape that hangs over the edge here that needs to be trimmed off of the blade, it's better to go ahead and cut that off first rather than stacking another piece of tape over it. That way you can cut the one piece really easily instead of trying to cut through multiple layers of tape at one time. So I'm leaving this piece a little long here, that way it'll overlap a little bit, hang off. So when I take my blade and I go to trim it, I have something to hold on to.
Okay, now we're ready to spray on our blackout. Now whenever you're spraying something like this wheel, it's got all those opposing edges, you're going to have to pay attention to your overlap, because each time you overlap your spray pattern, well, that's going to add that much more paint to it. And you'll have only 1 coat, you think, but actually it's 2 or 3. So try to apply it as evenly as possible. Now with this stuff here, you want to make sure to shake it really well. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting with blotchiness or it's going to be real inconsistent. After letting the first coat tack up for a few minutes, we can start hitting it with number 2. You gotta keep track of how many coats you're laying down with this type of paint. It's super important. The transformation that these wheels have made is easy to see, from these old ugly ones to our new blacked out ones. And it only cost us about 30 bucks. Now, we've got 3 more to do.
After the break, it's go time. Our IROC is ready to rumble.
Well, we've managed to land right on top of our 10 grand budget mark. And with our IROC all prettied up and carrying that hopped up 350 on top of some upgraded suspension, it's time to take her for a ride.
So Mr. Mark, what do you think about riding an IROC, buddy?
It's fun.
IROCs were actually one of the best handling cars of that era.
What's not to like about this thing? T-tops?
Yeah,
Hair blowing in the wind?
Yeah, the T-tops definitely give you the feel of that freedom in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Those Summit suspension upgrades and Mickey Thompsons took this from a great handling car to absolutely phenomenal. I feel like there's something missing.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know.
Do it.
You know, when you're building a ride, you can find yourself sometimes having to choose better functioning parts over better looking ones. But thankfully, when it comes to fasteners, you can get the best of both worlds. This ARP engine accessory fastener kit will keep things cinched down tight with ARP's famous chrome moly bolt construction. You can get them in either a black oxide finish, like these, or in stainless. They come with either 12-point or hex heads. Couple these with some ARP assembly lube and you'll have yourself a good looking and tough component underneath the hood. Now this is for a small block Chevy, but you can find it for a bunch of other applications.
Jumping from a small block Chevy to an LS engine, a popular upgrade is a pivoting bearing setup for your trunnion. If you're going to be going that route, you're going to have to be thinking about rockers. These Summit Racing OE rockers are remanufactured specifically to work with that upgrade. They're made of high-strength SAE rated steel and come in a set of 8. You can find them at summitracing.com and they run about 50 bucks.
And we've got one more really cool thing to show you right here. If you're running a street strip car and you find that carrying around a bunch of racing fuel is a real pain in the butt, then this little can right here is going to be your new best friend. Race gas is a racing fuel concentrate that you add to regular old pump gas and boom, you've got up to 105 octane mixture of high energy track grade fuel for your power plant. All you got to know is how much fuel you're mixing it into, the octane rating of your pump gas, and how much octane you want in your racing mix. Now you can get these for about 30 bucks each, which is a good deal if you ask me, for the hassle you don't have to go through. And we promise not to hassle you if you come back next time and see us again.